Nature-based solutions for disaster and climate change resilience are at their most effective and tend to be most successful when local communities are involved in the design and implementation. Hello there, welcome to this series of nature-based solutions for disaster and climate change resilience. I'm Perseverance Javangwe. I'm a climate reality leader and founder of Climate Justice Zimbabwe. I'm also the director of the Climate Justice Talk Show. So in this series, we will look on how to optimize the contribution of local communities to nature-based solutions, and we will also touch on ways in which the business community can get involved in nature-based initiatives. Local communities live on the front line of disaster events and climate change impacts. They are generally the first to get hit by floods, storms, landslides, droughts, and fires, and are the first to respond, sometimes going without help even for several days. So in order to respond effectively, these people need to have plans in place that can be executed swiftly using the resources available. Such plans are more likely to be effective where local communities, including women and girls, have participated in their elaboration. For example, taking part in discussions between local government and civil society organizations. Women and men living in rural areas have valuable knowledge regarding local conditions and the terrain, which can be critical in developing early warning systems, disaster risk reduction strategies, and also their preparedness plans. They are also guarantors of the sustainability over the long term, which is of vital importance given that nature-based measures for reducing disaster risks sometimes require years to become established and may only come to maturity after outside help is gone. Making sure that the women and men in rural areas are given the proper tools and knowledge to maintain ecosystems and continue protecting them is thus the only way to ensure the effectiveness of nature-based solutions over the long term. There are many examples of initiatives that leverage the enormous potential of local communities. I can take a good example from our African one of the African countries that is working on in the Akwa River catchment area of northern Uganda, where the non-governmental organization CARE is working closely with other organizations and the communities on wetlands protection. The Akwa River catchment area is made up of a dense network of seasonal and permanent riverine marshes, and is being heavily impacted by the climate crisis and years of accumulated land degradation. So due to erratic rainfall, increasingly frequent and intense droughts and floods that are threatening the food security of many women, men, children in that area, CARE makes sure that local communities and especially the women among them are actively engaged in protecting the wetlands. Women also work on the physical demarcation of the marshes, which remain to a large extent unclear to the communities, leading to irresponsible use and a lack of accountability, which feeds through into ecosystem degradation. So, ensuring the presence of indigenous knowledge holders and fire prevention agencies is a way to mainstream such sustainable risk prevention practices. At first, in line to hazard events, climate change, and ecosystem degradation, communities have that potential to reverse these negative trends when given the skills and also the resources. Another group which with such potential is young people, the youth, many of whom are conscious that they too are on the front lines. Youth leaders are fierce and passionate advocates for halting environmental degradation, biodiversity loss, climate change, and disaster chaos in their lifetime. So because of this, they can be champions in shifting attitudes and triggering behavioral change. The prime example of such leaders include Swedish activist Greta Thunberg, Uganda's Vanessa Nakate, Kenya's Patricia Kombo, and Zimbabwe's environmentalist Elizabeth Gulugulu and Laureta Marambo, who have often expressed the need for more emphasis on nature solutions to address the global climate threats. So, of course, not all young people are committed to addressing the climate crisis challenge, and many, especially those living in the cities, are cut off from nature. So it is therefore vital that efforts need to be made to raise youth awareness, notably through green urban initiatives that seek to increase children's interactions with land, water, and nature resources at school or even at home. Encouraging ecological literacy is key to giving children a voice in the climate change debate and encourages them to participate in nature-based initiatives. A recent view from the Frontline survey conducted by the Global Network of Civil Society Organizations for Disaster Risk Reduction, it showed that there is still a long way to go in sensitizing communities about what can be achieved through careful ecosystem management to reduce risk. So, because the truth is, you are never too old or too young to get involved in working with nature. Now I'm going to make the business case for investing in nature-based solutions, and I'll also talk about ways in which the business community can get involved in nature-based initiatives. As we all know, business have an important role to play in advancing different sustainability agendas. The ways they invest and the kind of consumer behavior they encourage have a huge impact on the health of the planet. So an increasing number of companies are taking steps to reduce their carbon footprint and develop eco-friendly ways of working. But however, as we all know, there is always plenty room for growth. So to make the business case for nature-based solutions, it helps to talk about nature in business terms. When we look at a tree standing in a forest, we tend not to think goods and services. So let's start with grasping a couple of concepts. So the first concept is natural capital. So natural capital is the stock of renewable and non-renewable resources such as plants, animals, air, water, soils, and the minerals that we in one way or another consume. So money may not grow on trees, but trees, like other natural assets, have a value, and not just in the sense of a market value that can be realized by turning them into a traded commodity like timber. They have a value standing right where they are, as absorbers of carbon dioxide, as habitats for wildlife, binders of otherwise unstable slopes, and as barriers against floods and storms. So these different functions, the things that trees and other natural assets do, are termed natural services. Another key concept in the nature is business paradigm. By framing natural resources and services and the terms used by economists, it becomes possible to assess their realized or potential value. It also becomes possible to assess the cost incurred by over-exploiting or otherwise mismanaging them. A number of methods and tools exist to assess the value of natural resources and services. One is the sustainable asset valuation. Sustainable asset valuation tool, which was developed by the International Institute for Sustainable Development. In short, it can be called a SAV. SAV has been used to estimate the value of natural resources and services in a variety of settings, including, for example, the Saloum Delta in Senegal, which according to the SAF 2 will provide ecosystem services such as wetlands for flood management. And these services are worth some 1.7 billion in total between 2019 and 2029, and they will save local partners 1 billion as compared to the cost of developing built infrastructure for flood control. So the SAF2 is also been used to assess the value of two wetlands in some African countries, which provide a range of ecosystem services that would otherwise have to be provided by built infrastructure at 1/3 of the cost. And on top of that, the wetlands are also a source of aquaculture, tourism, agriculture, business that generates both salaries and tax revenue. So this kind of evaluation helps the policymakers, the planners, and the businesses with whom they engage to weigh the value of the ecosystem assets they already have, and take that value into account when making plans for projects like infrastructure programs. So the ways in which a business interacts with natural capital creates both costs and benefits, which can be booked by a business directly or as an externality by a society as a whole. So the increasing pressure we are putting on natural resources means that we are facing more risks and opportunities on all elements of business management, which include supply chains, resources, land use, reputation. So understanding the value of nature-based solutions is needed to better manage these risks and opportunities and inform the decisions we take. Investing in nature-based solutions does not only contribute to a company's sustainability credentials and reputation, but it can also help reduce the cost in the long run, including the cost of negative externalities. So investing in nature-based solutions also helps companies to comply with increasing demands from governments to support green agendas, such as for example, the European Green Deal. So nature-based solutions can enhance and even augment natural capital and services in a variety of cost-effective ways. For example, by reducing maintenance costs associated with engineered infrastructure. The other benefits include important services such as soil formation and even pollination. The range and mix of benefits deriving from nature-based solutions makes it important to look beyond the typical indicators of economic activity, such as return on investment. So while it is certainly possible to make a sound business case for nature-based initiatives, it is also important to recognize that such initiatives also present a number of challenges for private sector businesses and investors, the most significant being uncertainty and the risk that goes with that. So national capital projects tend to involve counterparties that have limited collateral and, generally speaking, limited credit history. They can also involve multiple stakeholders who are operating in a context where regulation may be vague or poorly enforced. All of this will create significant uncertainty that can be amplified over the protracted development timelines, usually required to establish projects and bring them to fruition. Some of these risks can be managed, however, through financial mechanisms which are beginning to be developed or adapted from nature-based initiatives. These include traditional instruments such as green bonds, which are essentially interest-paying term-limited, IOUs issued to the bondholders, to more innovative mechanisms relying, for example, on crowdsourcing. So in spite of the challenges faced by the private sector, it's starting to get involved, and businesses across a range of sectors are starting to make an interest, and even in some cases, businesses are coming together to advance the sustainability agendas. As well as protecting the environment and even the biodiversity, it is also important that business projects respect human rights and good governance. It is our hope that this kind of green business activity and the green jobs will generate or will start to look more like norm between now and the 2030 Sustainable Development Goal deadline. So as we said in the beginning, there is always and there is certainly plenty of room for growth. So by working with nature, businesses can actually play a huge part in improving the health of the planet and make sure it stays healthy. I think that is the bottom line. Listening to the podcast series on nature-based solutions for disaster and climate change resilience made for the Community Voices Zimbabwe. Don't forget to mask up, wash hands, and keep social distance. See you in the next episode.